Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast brought to you by PrizePicks. I am James Ham, a Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me this evening, Box 40, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
I'm good. There was a little extra on that one, wasn't there?
My voice is trashed. That's why.
Is it?
This is a good
all right.
time to go out and do karaoke because I got a little
Oh,
rasp. I got a little rasp to it right now.
what would be the go-to? I think we've talked about this, but what would be
Yeah.
the go-to?
Oh, with this voice right here, Alice in Chains' "Man in the Box."
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You want to hear James Belt? That's
Let's
where
do
you
it.
go, right there. And of course, joining us is Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. Brenden, how are you?
Doing well. Finally finished moving, and I do not recommend it to anybody. It is chaos. I have not been having fun, to be honest. But it's done. Oh, as my mic falls, my setup is still figuring it out. So I'm doing all right.
We talked about this last week or earlier in the week that Sean and I never want to move again. I'm never going to move again. They're going to have to pull me out of here in a box.
Well, first of all, if I'm moving, it's not that I would never want to move again. I don't like going through the hell of moving, but I feel like you learn things along the way, and I think I just pay people. That's what it comes down to. Just pay people. It's worth it.
I'm glad, there's that age where you're where Brendan's at, from 19 to 28, where you and your friends all move all the time. And so you're always helping someone move and you're always like, oh, this is horrible. I don't know why we're doing this. And then you get to the stage where everyone's getting married. And then you get to the stage where everyone is having kids, except for two people. And then they feel left out. And then you get to the stage where half of your friends get divorced. And then you have to choose sides. There's all of these stages in life. I do not miss the moving stage.
No. I'm not glad to be living it. And I think I'm going to be one of those two friends that you mentioned, for what it's worth.
That never gets married, never has kids, never does anything.
Well, we'll see.
I don't believe you.
TBD.
I think I am now the most centric of the Kings Beat podcast, right? Closest to Sacramento. I think that was always the case, but
well, yeah, you're by
No,
far
you
the closest to
definitely
the
are.
arena.
Yeah.
I'm a trek. I'm a trek away. Let's see. Podcast candles.
Oh, of course.
Shit, I have no clue where mine is.
Oh no, Brennan's let us down with this lack of podcast candle.
Oh yeah, I have no clue where anything is right now. So
All right, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
he's got a blank wall behind. Taylor Swift would call it a blank space. I mean,
we're
what is that?
We're eventually gonna put things up. It's just not happening yet.
Oh, nice. Let's see
What
that. Is that
this? I had this behind me, I think, previously.
Not that. The other thing.
Oh, these? Well, these are not framed correctly, obviously.
Okay.
These are freelance stuff I did for the B back in pretty much Christmas 2021.
See, those should be on your mom's wall. Those shouldn't be on your wall.
Yeah, well, my mom would have to be proud of me.
You vain bastard.
My mom would have to be proud of me. That's a good place to start the Kings Beat podcast. All right. So if you are listening here, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the channel. That would help us. Give us a thumbs up. Thumbs ups are always good. It helps with the algorithm. Number two, if you're listening on some sort of audio, make sure to give us a rating and review wherever you're listening to your Kings Beat podcast. We totally appreciate that. We're still in planning phase for the upcoming Off the Record with the Kings Beat non-virtual happy hour meetup. We are working tirelessly on it. I am, at least, between that and working 3 jobs. Whether Sean believes me or not. No, Sean knows. Sean knows. We've had this discussion. And let's see, outside of that, jump on board with the Kings Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com, become a premium subscriber to get invitations to everything all the writing that we do, but also the Off the Record with the virtual happy hours and the real meetups. So we'll figure all that out as we start trudging through the season a little bit deeper. Man, the Kings are 4-4. I expected them to be better than 4-4 a week ago. A few days ago, I did not expect them to get back to 4-4 this quickly. Let's just start here. I guess, where are we at with these 2 wins? Because the Portland win, it took overtime to beat a bad Portland team missing 3 guards, their 3 best guards. And then the Kings show up against OKC, and it looks like the 2022-23 Sacramento Kings. Just where are you guys at with sort of the state of the franchise after 8 games?
Well, I mean, you've got. Go ahead. Do you want to go? Yeah, you go.
I was just going to say, like, I enjoyed watching the Sacramento Kings play basketball the other day. It was a good time. And I feel like we haven't seen much Kings basketball this year. And I would describe like Kings basketball as, what Mike Brown wants, at least, is physical, fast, and together. And I feel like they checked all those boxes against the Thunder. A couple of their first games, I think maybe their first 3 games were pretty solid as well, but they really fell out of it. I thought the Portland game was horrible, to be honest. You came away with a win, and I guess that's all that matters. We're going to look back, and it's just going to be a tally in the win column. So that's what matters there in the end. But not a great defensive effort against a team that was coming in as the worst offense in the league and missing so many of their guys. And then Brogdon goes down early in the second quarter, but they won. The OKC game was easily the most encouraging, though. Like, Kevin and Domas were playing out of their mind. Keegan found ways to be effective, even though his shot wasn't going down initially. Keon Ellis is starting now, apparently. And
that's like your dream. I know.
I just, yeah. Like, the tattoo might need to be on the face. I don't know.
You could have a teardrop, a small teardrop in the shape of Keon Ellis.
No, I haven't earned a teardrop tattoo.
You definitely earned the lower back tattoo, though.
There we go. There we go.
Look, I think there's something to be said about, this team going through its struggles. Obviously played 5 games now without De'Aaron Fox. That's significant. But playing against a Portland team after the losses in Houston, who, by the way, have won 5 straight. So,
yeah,
I think I made the comparison. I said that they're having the start like last year's Utah Jazz team did. I mean, who were kind of defying the odds. Now, I mean, Houston may be a good team. I was impressed with their starters. I talked about that before, and I think they're significantly better than last year, and they've got a head coach that knows a thing or two. So especially about being on overachieving teams. So I think putting them aside, I look at that Blazers game, and I think with all the tough talk that the Kings had done and all the little, honest conversations and maybe tinkering with the offense and getting back to trying to look more like themselves, playing the Blazers was almost like the perfect recipe, because, as you mentioned, they're down a few guys. Malcolm Brogdon goes out, but what the Blazers still looked like themselves. They were playing a very competitive brand of basketball and a what do we have to lose mentality. And next men up, they keep their identity. That guy goes down, they keep their identity. And yeah, it took everything in the Kings' weaponry to try to put them away. And there's something to be said about winning that way against a team like that, even if it is ugly, to help kind of rearrange and kind of recalibrate. And I think they did that. And I think coming into Oklahoma City, maybe the in-season tournament thing had a little motivation there too, in terms of excitement and something new, and just a kind of having something that's refreshed. But you have this new energy coming out of that game. And I think it really kind of helped get the guys right. You're no longer overlooking an opponent, because here you are with the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have aspirations of competing and being a playoff team in this league this year. So I think they got up for this game. I think it showed, and I think they played a beautiful brand of basketball for the most part. And I think it is interesting in that game too, against the Thunder. They were able to show that they can continue to play that brand of basketball even when shots aren't falling. You mentioned, it was great to see Kevin Huerter come out and have his season high in just the first half alone. But then you have, like you mentioned, Keegan Murray who's struggling with his outside shot, finds other ways to contribute, probably using Keon Ellis as an example of that, because Keon Ellis, obviously not a great shooter, but able to impact the game in a variety of different ways. And I thought he was sensational. But then you watch Keegan,
He is a
who's,
great shooter, just so you know. He is
yeah, I
definitely a
mean,
great shooter.
they go 17 missed threes at one point. Keon's the one that hits it,
19,
but
I think.
no, we went back. I did the math when I'm not good at math, but I
No.
found 17. If it is 19, that's great too. But
Okay.
looking back at it though, Keegan bringing his shot in, it's like, all right, screw the three. Let me go in and try, and I dunk on Holmgren. I've got a couple mid-range things. That almost kind of gets him the confidence again to, all right, let me step back out here and hit a three, and all right, all's well with the world again. So just things like that. They're just finding other ways to compete. And I think them, that Domas looking more like himself, finally getting that triple-double, but also being more aggressive. And I think we saw that in the Portland game. Certainly him being more aggressive on both ends is great, but not missing as many free throws. Certainly that there's going to be some struggles with turnovers right now as they look to increase the ball movement. But yeah, I think that was a big step in the right direction for them. And I think that it'll be nice if they can roll this over through the weekend and not kind of fall back into some bad habits.
Okay, so lots to unpack, right? The Kings just looked dreadful over the weekend against the Rockets. Like, and I don't think it was like, oh, they came out and they played down to their opponent or like any of that. I think that they walked into games totally unprepared and got stomped. And what it did is it revealed that there were some systemic things within their offense, maybe even within their defense, that they weren't comfortable with. And I think it was actually kind of a good thing because they, as a team, it feels like they had like a coming to Jesus moment, and they had like a really loud conversation with everybody involved. And it wasn't just that this player is doing something wrong or this player is doing something wrong. It's that the coaches are doing something wrong and the players aren't following what they're supposed to be doing. And everyone needs to get on the same page, and we need to scrap whatever it is we're doing and make some clear changes right now. That's what it felt like. We get to Portland and you think that there would be like this massive, like, okay, almost like, the Oakland Raiders, you fire your coach and you just stomp somebody. That's what I think we all kind of assumed. But I think what it did was it spoke to the fact that there was something wrong with the offense. There was something wrong with the defense. And the team had to not only talk about it, but then had to go out and try to fight through the mechanisms that were incorrect and try to get right. And so that's where I don't think this was about, like, again, playing down to your opponent or playing up to your opponent. But I do think that playing the Portland Trailblazers and even going into overtime was probably the best thing for this team because they were able to work through some of the issues on the court and figure them out. So they had a practice. They worked through some issues against Portland. They come back the next day, they reconvene, they go through practice again. They cleaned up some of the things that they started to do right in the Portland game. They came out on Friday and we saw the best version of the Sacramento Kings from last season. That's what it felt like. And so maybe I'm way off with that, but it just feels like this team needed they needed that Portland game to fix what was wrong, and not just fix it as in we have to play better, but fix it as in like we have to. There are specific things within our offense or defense that actually need repair, and we need to take on that. And so, and I'd also say the only reason I think they didn't blow out Portland, or at least like really beat up Portland pretty bad, was because Keegan Murray didn't hit his shots at all, and he just kept shooting and they kept missing. And I'm not calling a guy out. He's trying to fight through it just like everyone else is. And I think it's part of this whole thing where they're just a little off. And then they weren't. And so I hope there's carryover, but I thought the game against OKC was a very, very good game. Like Kevin Huerter looked like Kevin Huerter. And Keegan Murray struggled, but then all of a sudden started to look like Keegan Murray. And Keon Ellis can shoot, but I just thought he was tremendous. Like his ability to fight through screens and to be a functioning member of everything that they're doing. I just thought really, really cool to watch a young player who no one expects anything from this season because he's on a two-way and you expect him to be in Stockton, and instead he's starting for the Sacramento Kings. So let's start with the Kevin Huerter thing.
Real quick,
Yeah.
I just want to react to one thing there. I actually think the Kings treated the Blazers game as a loss. Like, I don't think anything was necessarily fixed in that game. I think it was fixed as a result of that game, because that game could have very easily been gone the other way. I agree with you about Keegan was a big contributor there, but there was still a lot of things that were wrong in that game that they had to sort through. And I think coming off of that game, certainly they were might consider themselves lucky or fortunate to be able to close out that game. However you look at it, I think they treated it internally as a, hey, this is another one that we chalk up as a loss, because like we still have a lot of things to deal with. And I think that's kind of what I was alluding to, which is you get the win, which is fantastic. I mean, a win is a win. You're not going to take it away, but internally you're trying to still hammer home details that this team just isn't doing right now. And you mentioned the come to Jesus meetings, and it's like, man, you're just not even 10 games into the season yet, and you're already having that. That could be alarming. So even with your best player out, we get it, but there's for whatever reason, things clicked. And look, we've seen this team compete. I mean, the Warriors game is something Mike Brown will point out too, even without Fox in that game, the in San Francisco before they went to Houston, is that they still kept an identity to them. Certainly they were running in mud in that game too, I would argue, but this is a game where the pace picked up against Oklahoma City, where the pace picked up, and they looked more like, hey, the next man down, that's fine. Here, we kept our identity about us, and that I think was the most encouraging part.
Yeah, I
think
would
it was
say
the best physicality that we've seen. And that's just been preached tirelessly. They fouled a lot in the process of getting accustomed to this increased physicality, but only 16 for Portland or for OKC in that last game. And SGA is a guy that's really good at getting to the line. Honestly, thought OKC could have got a couple more calls, but I think when you're extremely physical, they can't blow the whistle every single time. Right. I think that's part of the logic to an extent. And it frustrated OKC. Like, you saw them complaining at refs and clearly just looking flustered. They weren't getting into their offense smoothly. And that led to so many good looks on the other end. Like we mentioned, Kevin and Domas were so good in transition and in the half court. Like, the physicality that we've been talking about so much, that was easily, I feel like, the best we've seen. And maybe that Golden State game that Sean mentioned.
I would say too, the Thunder, while they're extremely talented, they are a collection of players, and like the sum of the pieces are greater than the whole still. Like, you don't see their design, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They're really good defensively. They're good individually as defenders. SGA, Lou Dort, Chet Holmgren, even Jalen Williams, I think, is a good defender. Josh Giddey's a good defender, right? But on the offensive end, they don't have a structure in place to rely on like the Kings do. And that's something that I think showed up like the whole time. It's a lot of one-on-one stuff, a lot of like getting the ball to the basket, which of course the Kings are always bad at defending. But overall, I think that like we want to see them as a team that's ascending right now. And they're still a team that's probably a year away from being legitimate like threat, where,
For sure.
maybe even 2 years away from being a legitimate threat, just because they don't have something to rely on. And I think the Kings did a good
Well,
job of
they
throwing
got, they
them.
have a legit star in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I think you could rely on him, absolutely.
Well, no, they do have that, but they don't have a system to rely on. And, again, if Shea goes cold, that team, I think, is in trouble because it's just so much ISO ball, especially with Shea. Shea is he's like ISO Joe, like very, very similar player. And I mean, like Joe Johnson in his prime was spectacular. And I think Shea is very similar to Joe Johnson, just in my opinion.
Mm.
Anyway, um, let's get to what the Kings like. Again, we're seeing Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter. The first week of the season was a mess, and a lot of it I think was coming out of training camp. He was a mess in preseason. Coming out of training camp, he was a mess. But then we started to see him start to build, and it's been the last 3 games. Even the second game against Houston, where the Kings were just awful. I thought Kevin Huerter wasn't. There was a different energy to him. He was moving. He was playing defense. He was fighting. He was rebounding. We get to the Portland game, and you got to see a little bit more of the old Kevin Huerter. And then finally, we get to this game the other night where Kevin Huerter, for the first time this season, actually looked like the Kevin Huerter that we saw for most of last season, for probably 70 of the 82 games. Watching the transformation of him has been really interesting. From like Brennan, you remember the first time we went in there and we started talking to him about him losing his job potentially, to him starting to find himself and like a little bit more confident, but then to where we are now, where it's not just like, hey Kevin, how are you doing, but hey Kevin, how are you going to help Keegan get through like the mud that you just got through? And so I think it's kind of an interesting like transformation that we've watched. Brennan, we'll start with you. Just where do you think he is? You think he's back, or do you think still some things he's got to work through, and we're starting to see more of the player we're used to?
I think the shot is back, or at least seemed to be back last night, right? 4 of 10 is a good rate for that to go down, but I thought he was great from 2. He did a great job again running in transition, and that pace that we talk about like isn't just open court, it's half court as well. And I've always thought that's one of Kevin's greatest skills, is that he's sprinting in everything that he does. And I thought that was absolutely the case last night. He went 7 of 9 from 2, and I thought was great in that aspect. I actually think he's been even better than last year. Like recently, there's aspects that he's done better. Like obviously the rebounding that we've talked about, right? He had 9 rebounds in that game. That's the second time in the last 5 games. He's averaging 5.5. Last year he was at 3.3. He's gotten a steal, at least one, in each of the last 5 games. He actually got 3 last game, 2 in the game prior. Like, I think that we've seen him respond to maybe some adversity, right? And embrace that physicality when maybe it didn't look like I don't want to say he didn't embrace it at the beginning, or maybe he didn't understand fully what it looked like or how that would work in live action. And I think that we've seen him grow to understand that. To your point, James, like the energy around him and just kind of speaking to him has definitely progressed a lot. And he admitted previously that, he's a guy, like I'd imagine a lot of athletes are, that like you're very up and down based on what happens in between those lines. And I think that's supernatural, but he seems to be higher right now. And I think it's understandable. He's playing great. The offense looked like it was back the last game, but I think he's been doing a lot of little things well. Connective passing, rebounding, being physical on defense. The rebounding's crazy. I know we've talked about it before, but he's like skying up there. And he's 6'7". Like this should have always been a thing, right? But it finally is.
And he finds himself in position to do so quite often, which is great. And I think maybe before this, this group has kind of pointed those opportunities out for him, or maybe before he's looking at just getting up court, getting to his spot and not realizing that there's a rebounding opportunity to be had. So I love Domas 2-man game with a lot of people. Usually it's Malik Monk, the one that I kind of rave about the most, but last night it was really impressive. And I kind of put a little montage together of most of which happened in the first half. I mean, they were so successful. OKC really had no answer for it. And I think, honestly, Kevin is an example also of things that happened in games prior. Like, I don't think Kevin has looked as bad as he did in the preseason and then the opening week of the season for sure. I think having a game like he did against Oklahoma City for sure, though, gets him that confidence back. But I think that was already kind of back in building. Like he came out with he has one of those games where he's flirting with a career high again. His career high is 30, finished 28. And, he kind of funny mention about that. I had forgotten that there's an in-season tournament where you have a point differential, where you need to run up the score on your opponent for this tournament. And I know the Thunder had taken some exception to him trying to hoist up another 3. But as he pointed out, I wasn't going for my career high. I was trying to get the point differential, and I thought it was good for a lot of people to hear that.
And just saying, if that went down, I believe they're tied with Minnesota right now at +7, and they're above Golden State, who is 1-0, but only won their game by 1. So that 3 going down would have you at first right now.
And it also, like, Kevin Huerter was unaware of that and was like, I don't want to be disrespectful. And they're like, no, hoist it. And then he's like, wait, are they trying to give me my career high? Like, I like whatever. He was confused by it and is like, okay. And he did have 10 rebounds, and then they took one
And
away.
they took it away. Well, they gave it to him and then they took it away.
Yeah,
it
so
was very strict. Yeah, they had to go
he
back.
was at
and
9 at the end of the game. Then he went up to 10 when we went downstairs to go into the interview room. The official box was at 10. Then he went back down to 9, and it was on Domas right near the end of the game. Tipped the ball back out to him, and I think they gave the rebound to Domas after the fact. So, okay, like one of the cool things about what we're doing here this season on the Kings Beat is we're on board with the PrizePicks. And so one of the things I've really enjoyed about this season is, number one, I'm not the only one playing PrizePicks. There are a bunch of my media friends. Sean is still a curmudgeon and has not jumped on board, but me and Brenden and then some of our other friends, like, we're talking trash to each other like during the game about our ridiculous PrizePicks, right, Brenden?
I mean, I don't do it on the Kings games, but I do. Yes, I am a part of these conversations for sure. I got
Brendan's
Chris
smart.
and Frankie on each side of me that are playing. Matt George in front of me playing. Alan, new host for Sacktown Sports, over on the other end, and then you doing it. Like everybody is playing PrizePicks, and I think everybody like had similar bets yesterday, so it was kind of a funny moment.
Yeah, and like, look, we're just having a good time with it, and that's what I think the cool thing is about PrizePicks is you can win like 25 up, 25 times your whatever you're putting in. But I just think it's cool, and one of the things that I keep choosing is I keep going more on Kevin Huerter's rebounds. And for some reason, they keep putting him way too low. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it seems like a weird thing to just put like one stat, like a rebounding total, but every single time is, oh, that's too low. And that's because Kevin Huerter is doing a really good job of rebounding. So jump on board if you can, if you're interested in PrizePicks. I think it really does like add a different element to watching a game. You can play, with your friends, or you can making fun of me on Twitter when I put out my PrizePicks every game, and I absolutely get destroyed. But again, it's a cool way to add something different into your basketball watching experience. So go to prizepicks.com/kingsbeat and jump on board if you want to get involved, and again, like, send me your picks. It's totally fine. I'm really bad at it, and that's sort of like the running gag that I'm not very good at PrizePicks. But either way, it's adding a new element, and like me and Matt George sitting there, like going back and forth the whole game, trying to like refreshing the phone to see if like Sean shaking his head.
You went
mean-
less than on a handful of people for the first time,
And I got killed.
It did go great, James.
All
Yeah,
in good fun.
it is all in good fun. It's all in good fun. Let's get back to the other guy who seems to be finding himself. I thought our post game with Keegan Murray was really, really interesting uh, on Friday night. Um, he is like, he's not a shameless self promoter. He's the opposite. But to like have him literally just kind of look at us like, everyone knows that I'm having some major troubles with my shot. Like, I thought that it was like a really honest moment, and it was good to see a kid who knows that, like, the shot's not going down. He's got to go try something different. And it started with the big dunk over, well, everyone dunked. I think I dunked on Chet Holmgren at one point.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
false cap.
Cap. But like, watching a player fight through his struggle has been really interesting to watch. It was interesting with Kevin Huerter to watch the frustration and watch him like slowly get through it. But where are we at with Keegan? Sean, we'll start with you, because this is a kid who, like, there's so much expectations on him this year as opposed to last year, and so far he's really struggled to live up to it. And then you get to this game against OKC where, like, holy cow, he fights through, and what's he finish? 24 points, 10 or 11 rebounds. He has 3 steals. But where are you at with Mr. Keegan Murray, Sean?
I mean, keep on shooting, but I like what he did last night against the Thunder. It's like, okay, my shot's not going down. Let me find other ways to be impactful, even as a scorer. And he did that. And I mean, boy, that was some aggression he took out on Chet Holmgren and on that dunk. Now, it's I had to ask him because I know that wager that him and Fox have about, who's going to have the best body dunk at the end of the year. And I thought this one might be there, but he said Fox didn't consider it a dunk on Holmgren because he was off to the side. Domas one was more in his face. Either way, I mean,
Lame.
he needed that. He needed that dunk. He needed that moment to just let it all out. And look, he still had a couple mid-range things that happened. I think it's really frustrated him when he's really just labeled a three-point shooter. I mean, this is some of the he exhibited some of the stuff on the offensive end that I want to see more of, where it's not just come out to your spot and chuck a three. Like, what else do you have? Can you take a guy off a dribble? Can you be a guy who can ISO? Can you be a guy who can just shoot over the top of somebody when you have a mismatch? And I think he did that. I think he did that several times. And then when he went back to the 3-point line and had an opportunity from the perimeter and let it fly, it went down finally. Like he had another moment. And it's like, okay, great. And now you just kind of move on from there. And I think last night can go a long way in kind of flushing some of the struggles that he's had. Certainly, I don't think he's out of the woods, but I think it helps with his confidence because you can see he's been wearing it. He has absolutely been wearing it with some of the shot struggles. So to see him kind of turn a corner and say, all right, if I'm going to struggle, great. I'm going to find other ways to be productive.
Yeah, he was pretty blunt in sharing that, like, last year, if shots weren't going down, I probably wasn't playing because I didn't do anything
Right.
else. And, he's making a concerted effort to change that this season. And we saw that, 3 of 10 from three. I think a couple of those came in that third quarter. He had double digits in that third quarter where Sacramento just could not score. But yeah, 3 of 10 from three, but you also got 5 of 7 from two. You got those 11 rebounds, 4 of them being offensive. I think offensive rebounds have been huge for the Kings this year. 16 in this game. They had 15 in the game prior. They also had 15 in that first game against Utah. And, with the shooting that they have, finding shooters after those offensive rebounds, I think has been really good for them. And he's just done a little bit of everything. I think that it's really what you like to see from Keegan because that shot is going to eventually go down. And like 3 of 10 is not horrible at the end of the night. Like that's still an okay rate. We were just talking about Kevin hit 4 of 10 and I'm like, oh, that's a good rate. One more goes down. I will say, by the way, he had one like crazy air ball and that stood out to me. I was like, whoa.
I think,
I don't
Sean,
think
I
I've
leaned
ever
over.
seen
I
a miss
said,
like that.
Sean, you were looking down. And I said, I think he
That
just
missed
missed
by
that by
6
6 feet.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Like I was stunned. I mean, it didn't even remotely, it wasn't even close. Yeah, just totally bizarre. And at first you're like, did he get fouled? Like, no, I don't think so. He just like Katie keeps talking about him drifting, which I totally see. Like he's not squaring up. He's deciding like halfway through his buildup that he's shooting it. And so you almost like see him like turning in the middle of his shot. And I think he's starting to clean it up. And when his feet are set, he almost always hits it. But I think we're going to see him like this is part of it is him learning how to be more than just a catch and shoot player and, playing off the DHO as much as Kevin Huerter did last year. And I think Keegan probably, if we went back and looked, there's probably we got so used to that play where they're coming off the top and Domas is setting the screen and giving them the ball. I think we probably, if we went back, we would see that he took an extra step and got clear of everything more often than this year, where he's almost like jumping through the screen and going up right off of the screen. So, I think he's making adjustments. I think he'll be all right. The fact that he's averaging 1.5 steals per game is nice.
Well, his
He's
rebound too last night.
6.8
Especially on the
rebounds per
offensive
game.
end. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he'll get through. Like Keegan Murray is not going to shoot 35% from the field on the season. That's just not who he is, and we'll see him. He's shooting 25% from three, 25.8. He's up to that, but the 37.5% from the field is pretty alarming. And that was the other thing we were mentioning with Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter is averaging 5.5 rebounds per game. Like really, really impressive how he's taken upon himself to step up and be something more.
The one downgrade in rebounding has been Harrison Barnes.
Yeah.
And I guess other guys getting more boards could be a correlation there, but he hasn't exactly been great.
No. So let's get to that because, we can't talk all about the positives that are happening with the Kings, but I think on paper, if you were to say, okay, Harrison Barnes is averaging 12 points a game, and that's not horrible because you expected some other players to step up and be more than they had been the previous year. And you look at his field goal percentage, like 47.8% from the field and 40.5% from three, but nothing feels right. It actually, like, after, if you take away the first game of the season, I think he's probably averaging 8 points a game, right? Like, this has not been the start that we expected to see from Harrison Barnes. He's still playing major minutes, but what do you guys? I mean, again, I think the rebounding is like an indicator. We saw it. It started in like February where he stopped rebounding last year and averaged like 3 point something rebounds a game the whole second half of the season. But where, this point in the season last year, Brenden, you made a bold proclamation. I'm not gonna, say that that's where we're at. But again, something doesn't look right with Harrison Barnes.
To your point, I said this last year too, and it eventually came around. Like early in the year, it did look pretty concerning last year, and he eventually came around. Like he had that huge game against Utah. I think that Harrison is at a point where ideally you have him in a team construction where whatever you get from him is an added bonus, and you don't want to necessarily rely on like a set number of production. I think he is good as the fifth guy out there, fourth guy out there, and fills holes. I don't think it's too often that you're like, God, Harrison totally blew that one. Like there are some defensive possessions here and there for sure, but I think more often than not, he is, flowing, keeping the offensive flow going, doing what's asked of him defensively. The shots are going down at an okay rate. I think it's 33% if you take out that 5 of 7 in the first game against Utah where he ended with 33. And like it is concerning. Like you want to see him do more with the rebounding, but I don't know. Like I think it's fine if Harrison has a slow recline every once in a while. He's going to have a quarter where he has 10 points and 6 free throws, like I don't know. I've kind of come to accept in my mind that whatever you get from Harrison is an added bonus. And I don't know that I'm expecting a set production every single night necessarily.
Yeah,
Which maybe says something.
It'll be interesting to see if teams kind of lean into it more and say, all right, we don't have to worry about Harrison Barnes. And that's not going to be the case because he's still a threat from the perimeter. They still consider him a weapon. But it's just a mentality. I mean, I don't know if it's the slow build and whenever. It's like I'm not really worried about him. I think you have to still respect him on that end. There are things within the Kings do that still make him important to the team, and a good portion of it has to do with spacing. A good portion of it on the offensive end, a good portion of it has to do with his length and having to respect it. But I think that if there was one thing about Harrison where I'm most concerned of, it usually has to do with his scoring ability and taking more shots. But I'm not really worried about that anymore because seeing how, I think he could get to the free throw line more. I think he's only got, I think it's 11 attempts in the last 5 games. You're going to need more than that, especially during those games where Fox hasn't played. So you're talking about guys stepping up. It's like Harrison Barnes typically remains by himself. And to your point, James, when you look at it on paper at the end of the season, you're going to look at it and he's going to have a stat line that's you're like, oh, okay, well, how do you replace that? That's a stat line you'd want to have. It's just a lot of times you look at the box score and it's like 1 of 8. I think he was pretty. I think his best game, in my opinion, might have. I mean, outside of the Utah game where he started out like a house on fire, you can't do that every single game. But I thought he was really good against the Trailblazers, and I think he was a pretty big reason why they won that game. So I'm not too worried about Harrison. He'll come around, and again, they have such an equal opportunity offense that there's other guys that kind of take the lead there. It's what else can you provide? What else are you providing that allows those guys become successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think this, strangely in a way, Harrison might be one of the guys that, for whatever reason, is more reliant on De'Aaron Fox being on the court than the other guys. Like, if you look at the two-man game that we see all the time with Kevin Huerter and Domantas Sabonis, or with Malik Monk and Domantas, or Malik Monk and JaVale McGee, like they're kind of reliant on each other in two-man game situations in these small games. And Harrison, like, he really does rely on De'Aaron Fox drawing so much attention and him getting a wide open look in the corner, or him getting a wide open look in the corner, but the guy closes out fast and he goes to the rim and he goes and either gets fouled or gets a basket. So I think for some reason that might be the case. Like, they're not running two-man game with Harrison Barnes and Domantas Sabonis. We're not seeing it. We're also not seeing him come off the high DHO. So I think that might be one of the changes that we've seen in the offense this year, that there isn't, Harrison Barnes is not part of like anything that's above like the free throw line. He's just not. So I don't want to totally get on Harrison Barnes when it does look like some of it is intentional by the coaching staff. But at the same time, like, he still needs to show up and he still needs to do a better job rebounding. The fact that he's averaging 1 assist per game, it just tells me it's not that he's being selfish. It's that he's not touching the ball enough to create for anyone else, because he's not. And so I don't know how many possessions he's getting. I don't know. If I looked at his usage right now, I'm going to guarantee you his usage is way lower than, we would have thought coming into the season. And yeah, his usage is at 13.7, where last season it was at 17. The year before was at almost 19. And he's a guy who's at 19 for his career. So, like, it just feels like he's not really part of anything. And I don't think that they're like singling him out and saying, hey, you can't do it anymore, so we're just going to leave you over there. But they aren't looking to get him involved. And when you're missing De'Aaron Fox for 5 games, that just seems like a really strange thing that he hasn't been involved. But I guess it's kind of the way this team is going.
He'll have his moments. I have one other question on Harrison. What is better, the Hassan Whiteside? Is it 1 or 2? The caw.
It's usually 1.
It's 1, right?
They've got. I think they have a couple different. Yeah.
Okay.
A couple
or
different recordings.
The Malik Monk. The hum.
How'd that go?
You heard it.
No, I don't think I know what you're talking. Can you do it one more time?
No.
Okay.
Hum. I've no clue.
You just offended monks everywhere.
I clearly like the Monk one better, if you can't tell.
No, I had to ask him about it last year because like, I'm amused by it, and he said he didn't know that they did it. That's how locked in he is, and I'm sure he knows by now. But
oh no, he did say after he heard it, he's like, oh no, I like it. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. He didn't know what it was though.
Oh no, yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, it's like a chant for a monk. No, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like the Harrison Barnes thing because it's ridiculous. It's Hassan Whiteside, and it's so anti-Harrison. Like, Harrison would never, like, I can't imagine him walking into a room and like introducing himself as like the Black Falcon. I just
Senator
like
Barnes.
Yeah, no, it's Senator Barnes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's get to the change, right? So,
The change.
Mike Brown had enough of a couple of players, like, and this leads to Brendan's guy, Keon Ellis, moving into the starting lineup, but also an opportunity for Kessler Edwards, who got like one of the quickest like hooks I've ever seen in the game against OKC. But then also Alex Len. And I think the one thing I'd point out is that Monty McNair, Wes Wilcox, the Kings front office went out and realistically brought in 3 players in Sasha Vezenkov, JaVale McGee, and Chris Duarte. And now we're seeing that trio is down to like maybe 10 minutes a game combined. Is that a surprise to you guys? And is it a surprise that, like, for some reason they haven't fit in right away and been meaningful and impactful towards winning?
I don't know. I mean, it's so early. You don't really have a strong sample size. I think this is just not everyone can play. Not everyone can play, and Mike Brown is going to reward those as he did with Keon Ellis that play the right way, that play Kings basketball, that play the way that they're. That what their identity is supposed to be, and that comes from the Houston games. I think, in the case of someone like JaVale McGee, he's not someone that can frankly play every single game, in my opinion. And I think JaVale, Mike Brown pointed out, JaVale being the good vet, like Alex Len has been playing pretty well, actually. And we haven't been able to say that a lot of times. And he's been ready, and he's been ready to go, and he's not a mistake player. Like JaVale takes some risks, as we all know, but JaVale also can provide quite a spark on both ends of the floor. So, I mean, it's so early. I mean, if think about it this way, man, we're looking at it. We're not even 10 games into the season. Think of Trey Lyles' struggles last year and being out of the rotation, and then being such an impactful player in the second half of the season where he has steady rotational minutes. I mean, we saw Sasha Vezenkov go out of games, or out of the Portland game, not knowing if he's going to be coming back anytime soon. Then he comes into the OKC game, knocks down a couple shots. Things look okay again, but it's not a whole lot of minutes there. So I think it's just going to be one of those things where it can be a game-to-game proposition. See, who's available to you, what the matchups look like. This is the real true definition of a team. And I think it's really interesting to have a team that finished third in the West and still afford opportunities to guys like someone like Keon Ellis, who's a two-way player. And most people have no idea who he is outside of really the Sacramento area.
Or Brenden.
The Stockton area.
Nerdnicks like Brenden. But, and then see him go out there and try to stop Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and have quite a few moments, especially down the stretch where, he's defending at a high level, and even though he goes, SGA went off for 33, like he was very, very disruptive. And it's great. You can see a guy like that crack the starting rotation, because guys know their roles on this team. Like ideally, yeah, Malik Monk is going to play more minutes than he will even as a starter, as Keon is a starter. But Malik has his role. He knows who he plays well with. He knows how to get that second unit going, and he does so almost on a nightly basis. Even if you have a few mistakes here and there, they're able to overcome those. So it's going to be it'll be interesting to see. Even, by the way, we still haven't seen Trey Lyles. Even if him and Fox are ramping up their activity, calf strains can be very, very tricky, and getting him back into the fold might take some time. And right now, I do picture a scenario how he can get back in there, but how impactful and how effective will he be? Could be interesting to see how Mike Brown kind of works him back in once he's ready to go.
Yeah, I think it's really about rewarding guys rather than, I don't know if punishing is the right word, but rather than, punishing others. I think it's that you saw those guys play the way that the Kings want to play at the end of that Houston game, and he wanted to reward that. And I think that sends a message to everybody. Like, I think they've done this really well throughout the last year and going into last season too, like giving Deonte Burton a contract or DJ Stewart something at the beginning of last year, like rewarding guys that are doing what you ask. And that sends a message that even if you're not really that much of a part of rotation on a nightly basis, we will see that you are doing what we're asking, and you'll eventually get more opportunity. So I think that's exactly what we've been seeing. Keon has fit in really well. He's a great defender. Him and Davion are both great defenders, but they do it so differently. It's interesting to watch. Like, Davion is very lateral and deceleration and strong, and Keon just has great hands. Like, he's poking away loose balls. He's getting blocks. He has great hands, great instincts. It's shocking that he was not like always a defender. Like, this didn't start until he went to Alabama in his junior year when he actually started caring about defense. And that's shocking to me because he looks so instinctual. That was quite a word. And, Kessler is a defensive guy. Like, Alex Len, I think, is a better defender than JaVale McGee. I think Alex has been great. And I'm just going to say, I do think I said on this pod that, are we sure Alex is not better than JaVale? And I am still not sure. Like, Alex played well last year when he did get opportunity. I don't know why exactly he didn't get opportunity throughout the course of the season, possible handful of reasons, but I think Alex has been great. And the pick and roll is still there with Malik Monk, right? Like, that's JaVale's greatest strength, is that pick and roll with Malik Monk. Malik was able to run that with Alex a couple times in these games, and I think it's been going okay. So I think these guys are playing well. I'm interested to see what'll happen when they get healthy, specifically at that point guard. Like, De'Aaron comes back. What happens?
Oh, I think I know what happens, but I'm going to, you two got bamboozled by Mike Brown. Like, okay.
What are you talking about?
I'm just going to say straight up, if I have a straight A student in the house, I don't have to reward a straight A student for getting straight A's.
What are we doing here?
I'm saying,
what is this analogy?
I don't have to reward a straight A student because they're already a straight A student, and I don't have to say, like, hey, I'll give you $20 every A. Now,
is De'Aaron Fox a straight A student in this analogy?
It's not
no. I'm just telling you guys, like, guys
about?
are getting rewarded for playing the right way. Other dudes aren't playing because they didn't play the right way, and they've got to go to the bench because they weren't. The Kings kept losing.
Well, what the hell do you think I said?
You guys are like, I think this is about rewarding players. No, this is about, yes, you rewarded some guys who in, like, literally in a blowout went out there and they did nice things in a blowout. Like, that's not the way this usually goes. The only reason a door was open, it was because other players weren't playing well enough. JaVale McGee, like, he wasn't playing well enough. Sasha Vezenkov, he wasn't playing well enough. And Davion Mitchell was not playing well enough. And so you rewarded other guys, but you also, that's disguising the fact that you were not rewarding some other. You were saying, I'm done. I'm done with this. This isn't cutting it. And I got to go try something else. Kessler Edwards, you get in there instead of Sasha. Alex Len, you go. I'm done watching what's happening. And Davion Mitchell, you're going back to the second unit, and
which is where he should stay. I mean, that's what he's best at. I mean, it's much like Malik Monk. That's where he's most effective. And yeah, he's next man up. You put him in there, but giving somebody like Keon Ellis, who deserved a shot, an opportunity based off of, certainly, I mean, some could say it was an overreaction, but it completely worked. My point is, yes, in a more blunt fashion, yes, guys were out because they weren't playing well. I'm with you there, but that's going to happen throughout the course of a season. That's what coaching is. So, meaning that once you get through, when this team is healthy, once you get through your 7-man, after that, it can be a revolving door of people. It could be, I don't think you'll ever have a true 8, 9, and 10 that who you might know who you like in that position better than others in terms of a bulk minutes at the when you look at the end of the season, right?
I
8,
agree.
9, 10, might have somebody there, but it will be a revolving cast of characters based on who is playing well and who is most adept in being able to go with matchups and things like that. Like, certainly JaVale McGee is going to play again this season. I don't want anyone to think that he's in the doghouse, and it's like he's accepting of that. Like, Davion Mitchell, like, probably could have started, and I think he has the temperament of an athlete and as a player and as a winner who went, no, I know what my role is like. He said as much. I don't think he went to Mike and said, hey, bench me, but he knows that he still serves a purpose on this team, and he was fantastic in that second unit in that game against Portland. So yeah, I like things that you've seen from Davion, but I think, speaking to the more broader point, though, is they have a lot of guys that will be called upon in different parts. And, like, if anyone, like, for example, yeah, Keon Ellis is fantastic right now, right? He's really impactful. Is he a rotational player? Probably not. He's probably not going to.
He'll probably spend most of the season in Stockton.
Correct. So, like, just, don't want people to be like, oh, they were talking so much great things about Keon Ellis. He did such a good thing. De'Aaron Fox comes back and now he's back in Stockton. Like, it's He's Keon Ellis. He's
Yeah,
not
so
the-
We just did this with Kobe Jones.
right.
yeah, and to Brennan, your question, like very specifically, when De'Aaron's back, Davion is still the backup point guard, and Keon Ellis is out of the rotation most likely. Like that's probably unless Chris Duarte's played himself out of the long-term plan as well. And then maybe that becomes like a spot where Colby Jones and Keon Ellis will be battling it out for some sort of, 9.5, that little half that we keep talking about, that player. But for me, like Mike Brown could not run his team out there again and post an 89 pace. Like that's why they made this change. They didn't make this change because everything was great and someone was like excelling in their 10 minutes of like cleanup garbage duty. They made this change because something was broken and the guys that are playing weren't doing the job that they were asked to be doing. I mean, again, this team went from 104 pace in the first 3 games, and then it's like someone hit them over the head with a sledgehammer, and they dropped to like 93. They got to 95. They dropped to 89 in pace. Like Mike Brown's like beside himself. Like I can't keep watching my team walk the ball up the court when that's not the idea. That's not the plan. And you got to go. Like you got to take a step back. The reason why, again, why Davion Mitchell looks much better with the second unit is because Malik Monk is running the pace with that second unit. He's running the point guard position. He's pushing the tempo. It's because Davion was in the starting unit and he was not doing that. So kudos to Keon Ellis for going out there and going, all right, here's my opportunity. I'm an NBA player. That's what I got the last couple of days. Like whether he's a top 15 player, I mean a top like 12 player or top 9 player, I don't know. But he certainly just said, hey, I'm an NBA player. If it doesn't work out here, I'm an NBA player somewhere else. So that's just my take. So again, you're not rewarding somebody because they did something that always does something right. You're rewarding somebody who like somebody else needed to move out of the starting lineup or out of the rotation. So
They were a better option.
Yeah, they
Right.
provided they proved to them to the coaching staff in a very small sample size that they're a better option, and again he had to make massive changes. What do you guys make of the fact? Like I started that discussion with, like I think it's a bold move by Mike Brown to look at his team and say, okay, all the 3 guys that Monty McNair went out and got, you're not playing, and I'm going with something different.
That's coaching. Like Monty McNair's job is to fill the cupboard, and Mike Brown is to set the table. So,
Well, and I should be fair
and
too.
again,
I want to be fair here. Mike Brown wanted JaVale McGee. There's no question. So like that signing is a, like I don't want to pin that all on and cause like I'm causing some sort of controversy between Monty McNair and Mike Brown. But go ahead.
Well, but just not to overreact. Again, we're not even 10 games in, so
No.
like this isn't the story of the season. So like these guys will be called upon at various points of the season to be able to contribute, and like there's nothing in my mind that screams that JaVale McGee is an everyday player, and I think people are probably wise to that now. But he's going to be called upon again. You're going to be seeing him plenty of times in a Kings uniform. Chris Duarte is a guy who's going to play he's going to play well too. He's not going to be a guy who I think is this diminished in the lineup, and hopefully the next time his number is called upon, he played last night. It's not, and he's playing smaller minutes, but I think now he'll figure out what is needed of him to be able to run the way that they want him to run. You can't foul every time you're out on the floor, and to his credit, he plays with a physicality, but he fouls a lot. And
Yeah,
Mike, that doesn't bother, and it doesn't bother Mike. Mike wants, I mean, he's talked about it. It shows the ability to be a physical team, but when you foul at the clip that he's fouling at, like that can be a problem.
Yeah, and I would say that like Mike has that thing that we talked about last year with the center position, and it was really based on like the Nemias Queta thing. Like I can't put you in the game for 3 minutes, and next thing you know, we're in the penalty.
Right.
And that's what Chris Huerter's done like multiple times already this season. And I like, again, I think he's still trying to get acclimated to being back on the court after a really long layoff. And he's a third-year player.
The reaching has been just a problem. I think it's been, that's what bad defensive teams do, who are trying to show that they're capable of trying to defend at a high level, is they reach a lot. And what do you see early in the season? You see a lot of calls. You see a lot of officiating play a factor because they're
Points of emphasis.
correct. So get to December, get through November, and it all kind of even out, and we'll have a much better read on what this team is and what certain guys are and who plays well with what. And I know Mike Brown talks about looking at the season as 5-game increments. The analytics will take 10 games and they'll break it up in that way, and that'll take a more true sample size of what certain people are, and we're not at that point yet.
Yeah, it's a process. I know there's a lot of continuity, but this is still a process to figure out what is the best for each individual season. Last year, KZ Okpala is starting. Obviously, Rashawn Holmes is a part of the rotation. Sean mentioned earlier, Trey Lyles became more of a staple in the rotation as the year went on. And it's just takes some time. Like, they're going to work through and figure out what is the best with the options that they have. And again, I think we said this last episode, I'm willing to bet on the unanimous coach of the year.
Oh. Right. And to that point, I mean, he's talking about, like, with the exception of guys like Domas, Fox, and I'd probably lump Malik Monk into that category just based on talent alone and what they provide you. Outside of that, it's tough for him to have to look at this team and go with who plays the right way. And I know that sounds like a very, elementary school kind of approach to if you're not playing well and you don't play the right way, I'm just going to bench you. But Mike Brown's not afraid to do it, and it could come at a detriment, but I think this team has got a togetherness and a cohesiveness to where they will hold each other accountable. And, it shouldn't make anybody pull their hair out to say, oh, I can't believe Chris Duarte's not playing as much as he factored in, or Sasha, who was the, the EuroLeague MVP, to see him diminished in a role like this. It's like, no, he needs to be brought along. Like, there's a lot of development for this NBA game that still needs to come, and he can easily get there, and we're looking at the G League that's already tipped off, and see where the season comes. You might be seeing a player or two down there and get some bulk minutes there.
All right. Before we get to the business of basketball, what do you think Chris Duarte's averaging fouls per 36?
God, like 7.2.
Sean?
It might be higher.
That's a pretty good number. I'll go 6.5.
7.3.
Whoo!
Yeah.
Knock my mic over.
Knock your mic
Hell
off.
yes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Right when you said the 7.2, I was like, that's a really good number.
That's probably 7.3 fouls per 36. He's averaging over 4 fouls per game. Like, you should probably bet the over there, right there. All right, let's get to the business of basketball. My voice is trashed. My voice is absolutely.
I feel like
trashed.
Sean and I need to have roles when that's happening. Like, we should add some like I can just like a dun dun dun, and you make some noise. Like, we gotta figure it out. Brainstorm. Figure it out. Put on your thinking Hurley hat and get back to me.
We don't have
workshop that. We'll see what happens.
We don't have buttons that I can push. Like I don't like. That's like
get an
being
instant replay machine. Those
we
are
could
fun.
get that set up.
No, like being in radio, like there are things like buttons that we push that like
it's called instant replay. Yeah.
All right.
It's
so
awesome.
like
there are StreamYard options. Just saying, we can get this figured out.
Yeah. Like You Will Be Slept On No More. That's one of our favorites from Micah Parsons, or I Am a Winner from Giannis Antetokounmpo. Anyway, let's get to the business of basketball. I should have a business to basketball and then like rejoiner music and everything. I don't.
Look at James, the radio guy now.
Oh no, I'm learning.
It's fun.
It's happening. It's happening, Sean. You can catch me on ESPN 1320 from 10 to noon, Monday through Friday on The Insiders with Kyle Madsen. There we go.
All right.
Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, our friends
I
over
bought
at Jiffy
Kyle
Lube.
Madsen Chipotle last night because
A lot of us went to Chipotle last night.
Every night
I
has become
definitely
a
had
Chipotle
last
night.
night.
My
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
Every night has become a Chipotle night. I still haven't done the Chipotle thing. When I'm eating halftime hot dogs, things have gone horribly wrong.
You said that.
What's that?
You said that. You said, I need a halftime hot dog.
I need a halftime hot dog because I don't know what's happening.
Did you put some sriracha on it?
I did that. I like Sean. There's nothing you could do to help it. Let's get to the business of basketball.
We're talking about the hot dog or the
media food. No.
the
Mustard on a hot
dinner
dog is fine. I was fine with mustard
Okay.
on a hot dog, but like I should not be eating hot dogs at 9:30 at night. That's just not
No,
healthy.
it's frowned upon.
Yeah, it's frowned upon.
Brenden just eats his raw
We don't
dog.
have to talk about it. That's not true. It's actually, yeah. Anyways, I've gotten more shit this year.
Okay.
Good.
Mike Brown said something that I think is probably very, very accurate. And he said he was talking to his son and he was like, I'm kind of glad we're going through adversity. And I actually believe Mike in this point. Like,
Do you?
would Mike like everything to be like, oh my gosh, we're amazing? Sure.
Yes.
But I actually think that like if you're Mike Brown and you need Keegan Murray to take a leap, and you might even need Kevin Huerter to take a leap if you're this team and you want to take and you want to be great, like which is what Mike Brown keeps talking about. He keeps talking about championships. This team needs to not only learn how to play when De'Aaron Fox is out, but they also need to have the confidence to go out there when Fox is there and be as good as they can be. And I feel like again, Keegan Murray probably wouldn't have had this huge nosedive if De'Aaron Fox was there. Maybe he would still be missing 3-point shots, but I don't think we would have seen this degree. But the fact that it's been like under a microscope is a big deal. And I think it's probably going to be good for the development of Keegan Murray. So I'm just going to ask you guys, am I crazy? Or do you guys kind of see where we're going with what Mike Brown's saying, what I just said? Like, this is an opportunity for guys that wouldn't normally have this opportunity to be forced into the limelight. And now they are.
What'd you say, Sean, about Sean and I earlier that we got bamboozled by Mike or something like that?
Oh,
I think we need a Uno reverse card right here.
Yeah, an Uno reverse card. Take that, James.
There we go.
No, I mean, I think that it's an optimistic approach to it. It's like finding a way that this can be a good thing. I don't know that it's necessarily like if Mike got to choose two different paths. I guess you'd rather have the adversity early on than later in the year. It's going to happen at some point, right? So I do think it's beneficial. Like they've responded well. A handful of guys we've seen respond in different ways. Like Kevin had his own individual adversity that we talked about and he's powered through. And we've seen Keegan do that a little bit. And the team as a whole, they're sitting at 15th defensively right now. Like I think one of the most notable things he said post game was that, the way that we shot this game, we lose this game last year, but they won on the defensive end. And so I think we've seen a lot of progress. I do think the adversity plays a factor. I think if he had a choice, I do still think he would prefer to just be 7-0 right now. But, there are positives that come from it for sure.
It's only been 5 games, but I think Mike Brown was like the rest of us. We wanted to see how the quality depth of this team could handle a loss of De'Aaron Fox and or Domantas Sabonis, and you're getting a little peek into that. Certainly it's not, well, knock on wood, hopefully it's not a 15-game absence or anything like that, but it's looking as if you're starting to have to figure yourself out. And I think what's disappointing to him, and it's what we kind of the overall theme of this podcast has been, is looking at how the Kings have gone from looking one way with one player to completely losing their identity or losing what they do well. I mean, certainly even with that top flight all-star that they have some shortcomings, especially on the defensive end, and that's well documented. But who knew that they would go from looking like the Ferrari to a clunker on the side of the road, and that's what they did. So you're starting to have some of those answers on film that you're able to kind of sit there and play over and over and over again in efforts to try to fix it before your Ferrari comes back, and try to get yourself up to the level it's more of acceptable level, especially on the offensive end. So it's a curiosity that he just like the rest of us, we were all thinking, what's this going to look like? Can they endure it? Can they, I mean, let's face it, after 5 games that De'Aaron Fox has been out, let's say he plays on when do they play again? Tuesday? Monday, excuse me. It's a long week. All these days are blending together.
They do.
Whether he plays or not, like, let's just pretend he plays. Going forward, does everyone just go, okay, well, we know what that looks like? And if you were to say, we know what that looks like, how do you define it? I mean, again, it's an early season 5-game absence. I don't know that you can fully have your answer. I think you can have theories, and I think you can have glimpses as to what it looks like. It's not good. And I still think if he was to play Monday, the overall theme would be at least whatever you would grade it would not be a good grade, right?
No, I mean, without De'Aaron Fox, no,
D+?
it's well below that.
And that's being pretty.
Yeah, without De'Aaron
optimistic.
Fox, the Kings are last in offensive rating over the last 5 games at 103.8.
Right.
This team was at 118.6 last year.
Right.
Without De'Aaron Fox in the lineup, the Kings are at a 96.59 pace off of, like, they were at a 104 with Fox. Like, I would say that you didn't get you got a failing grade straight up, and the fact that you're 2-3 over the stretch, okay, but you almost lost in overtime. You could have won a game, so it's very possible they could have been 3-2 if Klay Thompson misses a shot.
Sure.
But still, you take De'Aaron Fox away, and you lose your identity completely. That's a problem in my book.
And by the way, I'm of the opinion that this isn't what they really are. I mean, I think that's not a true test of, or an accurate depiction of what they are without De'Aaron Fox.
I want to hear what Brenden has to say.
I don't know. The expectation is also
he's got hand signs and stuff.
Yeah, go ahead.
All I'm saying is that sounds like one of the most valuable players in the league. Just strengthen in his case.
Oh no!
Just strengthen in his case. I'm just saying.
Can you go take a lap?
You just put him in the MVP candidate. See, all right. We got to wrap this thing up. Let's do final thoughts. Brenden, you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, my window's in front of me, but I'm gonna look that way just for for the bit. Okay?
Dramatic effect.
It seems very interesting to cover the Memphis Grizzlies. Saddle up, boys. Saddle up is an amazing quote.
That was wild.
It needs to go on a t-shirt. It's a great line from Taylor Jenkins. It makes me think of David Fizdale's "Take That for Data." Like, it's electric. I loved it. I thought it was just a great time.
Is he going to get $100K for that?
Maybe. Saddle up. One of the most poorly officiated games I've ever seen. Record it. I'm fine with it. Effing atrocious.
He didn't say effing.
No, he did not.
No, he did not.
He did not. Saddle up.
Saddle
Make
up.
a t-shirt.
Sean, what do you got for us?
Oh, my final thoughts. I have no window to look out of. It's behind me.
I didn't either. Just play the part, damn it.
My final thoughts. I can't. I kind of got nothing. You know what I did? So last night, I'm always. I wasn't the last person to leave the arena, so that was a good thing. But I was trying to hightail it out to meet friends and meet people at local establishments, and thought that when we had gotten down to last call and all that kind of stuff, that my night would be done. It was not. Who knew? And I'm going to leave it at this: that Sacramento could be such a reggae scene that I came to learn. And that it would keep me out till 5 a.m. You
asshole. I was texting you at like 1:30 and I got no invite to this.
First of all, I will say,
Just saying.
where you went and where I went were completely different places. And then
They
this
were.
guy goes at 1:08 a.m.
108. Goddamn.
Like I think because I think it's like he's like, so I forget what you said. I remember the timestamp, but it was like I could make it over there. It was like, oh, it's last call in like 20 minutes. Like that's no good. It was a very last second. I had a friend of mine call and was like, hey, got this thing going on, and what an eye-opening experience. That was a lot of fun.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Sean had a good evening.
A reggae.
I would have been down for that
vibe. It was I showed up like stranger in a strange land and had the time of my life.
Was this in like an apartment or was this at an establishment?
I can't really go much further than that,
Hmm.
but it was
under a bridge.
No.
Oh.
It's cold outside, Brenden. What's wrong with
Wow.
you? It's definitely indoors.
Weird stuff is happening in Sean's life. Yeah, I chose the mature thing and went home after the game because I had been up since like, I don't know.
See, one of the times
6:30.
you choose to go out, you just have to get like a hotel room or something because that's you live in another state and that's really difficult to enjoy the nightlife. So
That's true. I probably should just stay down every once in a while just to have a good time and go out. But I don't know. It was a long day. Plus, like a Saturday night would be way easier than a Friday night because again, Friday I've got the show and like it's early. I'm getting up early. Let's see. Final thoughts. I don't really have any final thoughts tonight. It's dark outside, so I don't need to look out the window. I'm gonna go out to dinner with my wife this evening. I'm gonna have.
What are you gonna have? You don't have to name the establishment, but what kind of fare will you be enjoying?
We're gonna go to a new. Well, it's not a new spot, but it's a spot I haven't been to. It's called the Tin Lantern, which is in Meadow Vista. I don't know. Like we're gonna try something new, something different. Meet
Brendan,
my.
Do you know where Meadow Vista is?
My best friend and his wife.
Not. Sounds like you take a yellow brick road to get there. I got no clue.
It's up Highway 80. It's like Applegate, Meadow Vista, right there.
Oh, Applegate.
It snows up there, right?
It smells?
Yeah,
snows. No, Applegate is where they stop traffic. No, Manteca smells. No, Applegate is where they stop.
Shout out to our Manteca listeners.
Yeah,
it always has. It's like an oil refinery or some sort of.
Scott Brooks will fight you.
Yeah, Scott Brooks, bring it on. Manteca does not smell good. Like even like going to the water slides when you're a kid, you're like, do we really have to go all the way to Manteca? Yeah. Yes, was the answer.
The Great Wolf Lodge down there now.
Oh yeah, it did change to that, right?
Huge. Yeah. What's that? Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Applegate is where they make you. They check to make sure you have chains. That's where when it is snowing, it's below the snow line, but it's right there where they're like, okay, do you have chains or not? And that's where they stop traffic. So, anyway, I don't think I really have any final thoughts. I'm good. Like it should be an entertaining week of Kings basketball. We got a game on Monday, and then they're on
we do not have a game on Monday.
We have a game to cover on Monday. We have a game to cover on Monday. Yes.
Yeah.
And then the Sacramento Kings go on a 6-game road trip starting Wednesday in Los Angeles against the Lakers. Still a big couple of days, and we have no idea when De'Aaron Fox or Trey Lyles will be back. Would love to tell you we do, but we don't. At least not that I can tell.
Looked like he was ramping up his activity in terms of De'Aaron Fox, and that
10 days ago, Trey Lyles did a full workout in front of us,
right?
like sweating and everything, and we haven't seen hide nor hair to that dude on the court. So
you haven't seen what?
Hide nor hair. It is a saying.
Huh. I've never heard that in my life. Hide nor hair?
Yep. There we go.
All right.
I thought you would hear it at your establishment you were at last night.
I was at a reggae.
No, the prior.
First of all, no, that place is not what is advertised.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think I know where Sean was.
Everyone knows where I go. It's kind of like I don't want to put it out there, but place is fantastic. It's I'll just say it. Cabin is fantastic. And if anyone thinks that like, oh, it's going to be some like, no, it's very eclectic and very popular. It's not like Goldfields. Goldfields is cool too, but like I think people think of like Goldfields and what Goldfields is, and they go, "Oh, that's what's at the cabin." It's like, no, it's not.
Well, all right.
It wasn't
No
Tiger,
no judgment here.
but
What's
there's
that?
a reason I don't want to go. I can't
Hey,
handle.
I was
Tiger
hanging out with
tonight.
D'Lo and Casey. Marshall was in
Marshall
town.
Harris.
Marshall Harris was in town, and I hung out with a handful of people. Okay, it wasn't my
Good
idea.
people. Yeah.
I almost just headed over there afterwards, and then I didn't after the game. Like Brenden, you and I were walking out together.
Yeah.
I almost like went over and set my bag down and went back out. But
As much as I love the good people at Tiger and the people who are behind all that, those scenes are. I'm not the most clubby type of. I need more of the kickback kind of thing. So
oh yeah,
That was the first time I've ever been in that place, and honestly, the first time I've ever been in like a clubby type place in my life.
oh okay.
Sorry.
that's something about you.
Yeah.
Sure.
I've been to
Gotta
some
get
clubby type
Sure.
places.
more experienced.
All right.
Okay.
We just keep dragging this thing out. That's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. If you're still watching for some reason, I'm not sure why you would this late, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, jump on board with the Kings Beat, go to thekingsbeat.com and become a premium subscriber. Go check out all of Sean's work at Fox 40. You have our Twitter handles are not on here, but also check out everything Brenden is doing at the King's Pulse podcast and other places. And drop by and see me Monday through Friday from 10 to noon on ESPN 1320 with my dude Kyle Madsen on the Insiders. So thanks for tuning into the Kings Beat podcast for Fox 40, Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Make sure to jump on board with PrizePicks. We'll see you very soon.
Saddle up.